Hi, everybody. Welcome to our second week of psychology. This week, we're going to look at cognitive psychology. Cognitive also relates to the word cognition, which means thinking. Okay, so this is not our thoughts and feelings and our past experiences like last week. This is the actual kind of function of our brain and how we think, how we perceive, remember, etc. So cognitive psychology is focused on the study of how people perceive, so how we see things, remember, think, problem solve, and learn. Cognitive psychology focuses on the way we treat information that comes in and how this treatment leads to different responses. So something that I think is always kind of cool to think about is looking, for example, at the color red. So we all know that's the color red because we've been taught that since we were a kid, right? But how do we know that we actually see the color red the same as each other? And I think there's really no way of knowing that. We can describe it. We can say, oh, it's red. It's, like an apple. It's like a fire truck. But that still doesn't mean that we perceive things the same way. I just think that's kind of cool to think about. First, we're going to talk about memory. So you probably know this. There's short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory are things that we keep in our brain for a short time, like answers to a test, like math, like ways to solve math problems. Long-term memory is things that we remember from our childhood. Songs go into the long-term memory part of our brain, music. So what makes someone have a better memory than someone else? It's literally only practice. So let's talk for a minute about short-term memory. The ability to hold on to a piece of information temporarily is something that is specifically human. They have done studies, and it seems that animals don't have as good short-term memory as us, though probably chimpanzees would, and dolphins, very smart animals. It causes certain regions of the brain to become very active, so that's how they would actually know all of this, by doing actual brain experiments and hooking up electrodes to people's brains and seeing what parts of their brains fire up when they're doing different tasks. In particular, the prefrontal lobe. So this is the region at the very front of our brain, and it's highly developed in humans, and it's far more underdeveloped in animals. This is the reason we have such high upright foreheads compared to the receding foreheads of our cousin the apes. So if you remember when we looked at physical anthropology, our ancestors had their heads were a lot smaller than us, and they kind of angled back. I want you to watch these videos. They're about people who have amazing short-term memory and strategies for short-term memory. They're pretty cool. And long-term memory, information is transferred from short-term memory to long-term memory through the hippocampus, which is another part of the brain. When we remember new facts by repeating them over and over or using mnemonic devices. So mnemonic devices are things like in French, if you learned Mrs. Vandertramp, there are ways to remember things in an easier way. You make up a saying that represents a part of what you need to remember. We're actually passing our memories through the hippocampus several times, and that's what helps us get things into our long-term memory. And then there are two little videos for you to watch there, and some tips to strengthen our memory. There are 3 tips I'm going to give you. One of them is sleep. Are you well rested? We probably actually are kind of well rested right now, at least more well rested than normal. Memory is directly associated to the amount of REM, which is rapid eye movement sleep, you get every night. Organization, so the way our memories are organized strengthen our ability to recall information. Repetition and elaboration are 2 ways to help memories become easier to retrieve. So repetition, just over and over and over. And practice, so our brains need to be exercised and used to improve and maintain our abilities. And there are some memory games for you to do. You can just search up more memory games if you're having fun doing those. They're always really good for your brain. Looking at perception, so what is the definition of perception? The art or faculty of perceiving or understanding by means of senses. So this is sight, smell, hearing. or of the mind, cognition, so that's thinking or understanding. 3 steps in perception. So the first step is physical, the actual electromagnetic waves from the object to the eye. So this is going into our eye, we're seeing something. So for example, we're seeing the color red. The second is the physical visual apparatus. So the eye actually, from the eye actually to the brain, and there is a nerve connecting our eyes to our brain, which is why our eyes are actually so close to our brains, right? If you think about where our eyes are in our head, we don't have eyes on our arms, right? Because our eyes need to be close to our brain because they're directly connected. And the third is the interpretation of what we see, and the creation of the model of the world that's created by our consciousness. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the third step, because that one's the most complex. What we see is combined with information from our memory to create the picture. Okay, so we are creating a lot of what we see based on what we have seen before. Our picture of the world must be constructed from incomplete information. Okay, so wherever you're sitting right now, look at something in your bedroom or whatever. Okay, so look at like a box, something shaped like a box. You cannot see the back of it, right? But you know there is a back there. How do you know there is a back to something? Let's say your dresser, right? Something shaped like that. How do you know there's a back to it? Because you just know, okay? Because this is inferred by clues. We know there must be a back, and we also know from experience that there is a back. So your mind is creating the shape of a rectangular prism, right? Even though you don't see that. So it's pretty cool. And there are some optical illusions. Go through those. They're really fun. And this is optical illusions are a really good example of how your brain is creating information based on knowledge and based on what it thinks should be there rather than on what is actually there. So have fun with those optical illusions. Our last thing we're going to do in terms of cognitive psychology intro is the theory of multiple intelligences that was developed by Dr. Howard Gardner. So this is a theory that is talked about a lot. Actually, I learned about this in Teachers College. I remember that there are 8 different intelligences, so types of learning, to account for a broad range of potential and types of people. So you can look through those 8 types of intelligence. And here's just a little kind of infographic thing to help you understand different types of intelligence. And then, oh, where did it go? Uh-oh. I didn't do it here. Don't know where it went, but I actually meant to do a multiple intelligent test. Oh, I know where it is actually. It's in your assignment. There's a multiple intelligent test for you to take. Okay, so see you later.